Hi, good afternoon. Hope you're all well. My name's Guy Lewis, and I'd like to welcome you to the first show of 2024 and the 19th episode of the Business Lincolnshire live show. The live shows that started in April 2021 to engage with businesses across Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland about topics that are affecting them, answer questions, and share the support that is available to you as a business owner. So if you want to get involved with the chat, and as I'm chatting to you, I'm just going to quickly look on and see if I can see. Yeah, I can see that you can see me, and I think you can hear me as well. So I'll check that. Yeah, you can. There we go. If you want to get involved, if you've got any questions, please feel free to bob something in the message live. Do it through the LinkedIn event chat. There's a bit of a delay between you putting it in and me getting it, but I'll try and get your questions answered later in the show. So really, what we're talking about today, the title was Sustainability and Net Zero. So in advance of the launch of the latest fully funded net zero and sustainability programs by Business Lincolnshire through the Shared Prosperity Fund, today we'll be looking at all things green, and I don't mean the colour. We'll be joined today by Tony Newell, who is the owner and director of N4 Energy Solutions Limited, and Tony is also the low carbon specialist, who is also provides services to businesses through the Business Lincolnshire support programme. Later in the show, we'll be joined by David Knight, principal consultant for PECT. David will begin at lots of information on the latest support programs that they're providing and that are being launched through Business Lincolnshire. Finally, I'll invite both Tony and David to answer any questions, also give us some top tips on getting your business to be more sustainable. So firstly, I'd like to add Tony to the stage. I'd like to bring Tony in, who's the owner and director of N4 Energy Solutions Limited, and is a member of the Chartered Institute of Management, the MCMI, and is an associate member of the Energy Institute, AMIEI. Tony has recently been appointed as Business Lincolnshire's specialist low carbon advisor and is a member of the Energy Council for the Greater Lincolnshire LEP and an associate consultant for Siemens PLC. N4 Energy Solutions are currently contracted to provide direct low carbon environmental support to SMEs across Greater Lincolnshire, including South East Lincolnshire Partnership and the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority areas. I always find mayoral combined hard to say. Hi, Tony. Good afternoon. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Guy. I'm good, thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's it's a pleasure to take part in this. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. So, Tony, you've already been providing services around sustainability since what? Since about October. Just give me, what services do you do? What you're providing through the Business Lincolnshire programme?
Right. Well, I mean, as a and thank you for the introduction. Yeah, as a business, I provide kind of advice and support on environmental and carbon policy, energy and environmental auditing, carbon footprinting, and environmental management and regulation, really, and help businesses navigate the way through some of that. But as part of the Business Lincolnshire programme, I provide energy audits mainly. That's the kind of the service that's mostly in demand. Energy audits for business, but there is scope within the programme itself to offer some bespoke support to businesses where they've got maybe a wider environmental need, or they want some advice on environmental policy, or they've got a particular project that they want to get off the ground and they're not sure, they've either not got the time or knowledge or capacity, whatever, to get it off the ground. They'll just want a bit of support. So it's it can be tailored, but the general support that I've been providing to date has been around energy auditing. So to go into a business and look at how they use energy, why they use energy, and to calculate the carbon footprint and look at how they and reduce that.
Okay, so it's that sort of first bit, that energy audit, is almost like the start of their sustainability journey, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are different reasons why SMEs, in my experience, are contacting the programme. It's that why bother bit, I suppose. Why are SMEs really engaging with the programme? Really, there's different reasons. I mentioned time. Quite often, SMEs are, I think, firstly, to start with, the recent energy crisis has been a big trigger. I think cost of utilities has increased significantly. It's going back down now, thankfully, but that's been a significant trigger to motivate businesses to actually look at this agenda, which is great. But sometimes businesses are just time poor. They're very busy, got the head down to keep the business afloat. They know that they want and they should be improving their green credentials and trying to cut resource use across the business. It makes good business sense, but they haven't got the time or capacity to do it. So that's one reason. Lack of knowledge, lack of confidence as well. Really, sometimes they have ideas, but they're not really sure. And sometimes I've had quotes from contractors, but they're not really sure whether that's the right thing to do, whether what they've been quoted is the right size, scale, whether it's right for their business. Should that be the first thing that they're looking at? Is there something else that maybe they should look at investing in first? So, that lack of confidence sometimes, and they need somebody independent to come in and say, well, look, you're doing the right thing, you're going in the right direction. Yes or no, that is the right thing to spend your money in the first instance. So
you talked about energy and environmental auditing, Tony. So is that they're two different things?
Yeah, I mean, the core of it is to look at the energy aspect, if you like. So to look at in terms of gas consumption, electricity consumption, oil, LPG, those core resources that are used to heat and light a business and an operation. But in terms of, from a carbon footprint perspective and an environmental perspective, on a wider remit, I can also look at water. So, water saving, water efficiency, waste management, how's it managed, how's it disposed of, how's is recycling undertaken? Also transportation. So, again, it varies from business to business. So, are your vehicles owned or leased, and how, in terms of the journeys that you undertake, are they undertaken as most efficiently as possible? And in terms of the type of vehicle, there's an increased, move now towards electric vehicles, for example. But again, there's a fear about kind of doing that. So yeah, from an environmental point of view, it can kind of broaden that scope. But the core remains that energy audit, but we can look at wider issues and tailor it to the business, really, if they've got a particular project that they want to move forward on. Okay.
And like you say, that's covered. Actually, there is some sort of regulation and laws that they need to sort of make sure they align with. And again, you make them aware of that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to take it to kind of the nth degree, to more detail, we can look at the different aspects, the different ways in which their business and operation touches the environment. And so yeah, I mentioned energy use, I mentioned waste, I mentioned transport. It's all having an environmental impact, and whether it's through pollution or whatever. And it's identifying what those are, and it often actually aligns quite closely with quality management, health and safety issues, those kind of things. And you're looking at essentially managing risk. So if you've got an operation, there'll be environmental regulations that you need to comply with. How are you managing those risks? How are you managing your pollution risk, etc. So yeah, it's we can help with that regulatory piece, and signpost to if the business is minded to go to an ISO kind of standard, then obviously signpost organisations that can help support and deliver that with them. So yeah, it can be quite broad, really.
Okay, and do the businesses have to pay for this service?
No, it's free at the point of use, to pinch a phrase, and obviously there's kind of limitations in terms of the hours, but that's within the kind of framework of the contracts. But no, essentially the way to kind of access it is to have that conversation with your local business advisor, your growth hub advisor, through Business Lincolnshire, and they will have a general kind of diagnostic conversation with you as a business, and identify where Business Lincolnshire as a whole can assist you, whether, not just from an environmental point of view, but it could be skills, it could be financial grants, whatever. And within that, if there's identified that there's a potential for me to support the business, if there's that need and there, then they'll make that referral through to me, and kind of set out what that support needs to be, whether it is an environmental audit or something wider, and that's free to the business. And
what I'll do is I'll put that sort of generic business link, Business Lincolnshire support program link. I'll put that in the chat near the end of the program. What I have got actually is a sort of I'd looked on the website picture of you in the top right there, Tony Newell. There's a connect button there that actually allows someone to put that inquiry forward, don't they? Yeah,
that's right. And at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of that page, the About Us page in Business Lincolnshire, there's contact details. You can actually register your general interest as a business, and kind of get on the program that way. Equally happy if businesses want to just drop me an email or whatever, I can kind of pass that through and make sure that it's dealt with. It can work either way, really. And
Got you.
The important thing.
You mentioned emails. Bang in there, it goes. So that's your Business Links email. I'll put that in the chat at the end. So if people want to get you direct, that's how they can. So really, the summary of that one is either go to your growth advisor, go to Business Lincolnshire, or drop you a line. But either way, make an inquiry. Just put it in there, and then someone will come back to them, making sure they're eligible, making sure you can sort of access your services, I guess.
Absolutely.
Is there things you can't do? Are there things that you can't do within that sort of?
Yeah. I mean, it's and that's important, because what I'm not is equally as important as what I can provide. So I'm not an energy broker. I mean, I mentioned the cost of electricity, cost of gas, the utility prices going up. What I don't do is provide that service where I'll find an energy supply for you. I don't sell anything. My business doesn't sell anything in that regard. We just offer independent professional advice. So no, I don't do that, but I will offer commentary, because obviously I'm coming into contact with businesses every day. I understand what the current price is and current rates, and what is a good and fair rate, whatever. So I'm happy to offer commentary and advice on whether that is they're on a current contract, whatever. So I'm not an energy broker. I'm not not an installer, so I'm not aligned to an installer, and I think that's important. So I'm not providing a technology, solar panels, or anything of that nature. Simply, and it's important, offer independent advice. And I think, and I go back to what I said earlier about what's driving businesses to do this. I think sometimes they just need that independent advice, and they need a view that they can trust, because if you get quotes from contractors, there's sometimes a bit of skepticism there as to whether they're trying to sell you something or whether it genuinely is good for your business. So I can offer that independent view, if you like, and give businesses confidence and motivation to actually go ahead, hopefully. It's free. So what's not to like? There's many benefits, aren't there, to business, really, because you look at it's not just about, very importantly, not just about carbon or environmental impact. You're reducing the operational cost of the business, so it makes good business sense if you're saving resources and saving money in the longer term. It can reduce your risk as a business, because if you're installing on-site generation like solar power, got less reliance on grid supplies, so it's improving your business resilience, and it's improving your green credentials as well. And increasingly customers, banks even, and suppliers are asking these questions. What is your policy on the environment? What are you doing about it? Hopefully I can help in that regard, and help get a business into a position where it can answer that question genuinely, and evidence to back it up. And I think that's important.
So part of your sort of support really is filling that knowledge hole, but also giving the business more confidence to sort of talk about sustainability to actually sort of act and know they're doing something in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. And I try and keep it simple for businesses, and I think that's important. I mean, it can be a very technical subject, and you can quickly get bogged down into, you look at carbon emissions. I mentioned carbon footprint. You get scopes 1, scopes 2, scopes 3. It's just gobbledygook to a lot of businesses, really. And I think whilst it's important, keep the message simple. It does make good business sense. It's a common sense thing to do to reduce your environmental impact, and for the reasons I've just set out, it's good for your business. So try and go gently. It's in my view, yes, we can write policies and produce reports and things, but what matters the most is businesses taking action and actually doing something with it and doing something about it. So, and sometimes we all get things wrong. Sometimes businesses will have invested in things when really they may be sort of invested in something else first, and there's no problem with that. They're actually moving forward. They're taking action. They're doing something. And me, that's the important thing, is to get action taken and start to get that resource demand down. So yeah, it's about just providing that reassurance, I think, along the way, mainly.
Yeah, what I've seen is we did a program. We did a program some bit ago, and we asked people, where were they on their sort of sustainability journey? And most of them said, "Oh, I'm at the beginning. I've actually, I've not really done much." And then you sort of get them to list stuff out, and it's like, well, I'm separating my waste, and I've done this, and I'm not using one-time use plastics, and you think you're way further than just starting. You've implemented stuff.
Absolutely.
Do you see that quite a lot?
Yeah, I do, and with large businesses as well. On the large SME, the medium-sized businesses. I quite often, before I actually go and visit the business and make contact with them, I'll have a quick look at the website, for example, just to try and get some background information. Historically, that's always it's a good impact source of, that's your first impression of the business. And the times that I see absolutely nothing that mentions the environment or anything of that nature on that page, and when I go and walk around and I'm escorted around with a senior manager in the business, and they're pointing things out and explaining, we've graded all our lighting, we've done all this, and I'm saying, why aren't you shouting about this on your website, and why aren't you claiming some of this these improvements as you're taking an approach to improve your green credentials? Well, we're not really thought about it. I suppose we should, really. And it's that kind of say quite right, we're often doing good things, but it's not being recognised. And I think that's getting increasingly important to not necessarily go out there and get badges for it, although that is often a good thing, to give yourself an accreditation and actually have a recognised badge for your achievements, and I think that's a good thing. But you don't need to do that to start with. There's things you can promote on your website without getting into the greenwashing agenda or anything like that. As long as you're stating facts and figures about things that you've done, absolutely no problem with that at all. But sometimes that's about just having a simple side of A4 policy statement on what is your approach as a business and what have you done to date, and getting that on there. So
I think it's like you're saying, giving people the confidence to sort of say, actually, this is an action about sustainability. We are aware, and actually, like I say, being proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we sort of quickly talked about how you get involved. So we said, go onto Business Link, talk about your growth advisor, contact you put your email address out. Are there any things that the SME should prepare? Is there things they should be thinking about even before they get in touch with you, or before a visit, before that sort of audit you might do?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is I'll get the referral from the growth advisor, and the business will then be kind of expecting me to get in touch. And as part of that discussion with the advisor, they'll be kind of given the heads up of the type of information that I'll need. So that will be 12 months worth of utility bills, for example, so that I can have a look at that and establish, how they're using energy and resources, utilities for the business. it enables me to kind of analyze those bills and calculate carbon footprint for the business as well. So pulling together that information is important. I'll make contact with the business and kind of assess any health and safety issues about walking around the site, because some of these are manufacturing businesses, and it's important that we follow those kind of things. So I normally ask to be escorted around the site, because I like to get into some of the dirty places like boiler rooms and meter cupboards and things like that. So roof spaces and things. So to be escorted around the site. So there's a bit of a time input, an hour or so on the day to walk around and take plenty of photographs. And then really I kind of go away and draft the report within 2 weeks of that audit. Produce a report that sets out observations. You get a carbon footprint, an action plan in there that sets out recommendation. The cost of that recommendation. So if it's upgrading the lighting, I'll have done a lighting survey, recommend what that'll cost, what it will save you, what the reduction in carbon footprint will be, and the payback period for that investment. So, it's a bit of an action plan, carbon reduction action.
And you entered that within 2 weeks of the audit. That's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we try not to hang around. If the business needs help, we'll try and help move them along as quickly as we can.
Brilliant. I'm going to use that hang around. As you said, could you hang around for me? I'm going to tell. Thanks for that. Thanks for that sort of advice. What I want to do, Tony, to drop you out of the studio, I will bring David in, but I want to bring you back in later on just to answer any questions, or maybe do some hints and tips, and maybe go a little bit more into that sort of return on investment, maybe some of the costs. Don't know. Let's just see how it goes. But thanks for that so far. I'm going to unceremoniously dump you out of the studio, and I'll catch you up to see David. Thanks very much. So next I'm going to bring David into the studio. I'll just give him a quick intro. So I'd like to bring into David Knight from PECT. I've known David for a number of years. We've done with a number of years. He's been involved with making podcasts with us, and we've delivered masterclasses on various programs. David is a self-described data head. He excels in carbon and energy analysis and has a broad depth of knowledge and understanding of energy efficiency and how it can apply to an organization. He is a technical guru, from spreadsheets to green technology, and is a firm advocate for the right technology in the right place. He has 10 years of experience working in the organisation of all sectors and sizes to find successful ways to reduce the energy reliance and carbon emissions. Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon, Guy. Very well, thank you.
I need a drink of water after that intro. I tell you. Really nice to see you. Obviously, you've been listening to our chat with Tony, and what I want to bring you in for, because you and PECT are that you're launching a new program for Business Lincolnshire. So I thought first thing first is intro about you, David. But tell me a bit more about PECT, who PECT are, what they do, and then we'll start to talk about what the program that you're about to launch will do, and how businesses can access it, etc., etc. Is that okay?
Yeah, brilliant. No, thank you, Guy, and thank you very much for the introduction. So just to introduce PECT. So we're an environmental charity. We were been in the running now for over 25 years. We look to educate, inspire, and motivate individuals and organisations, really looking to help them change their behaviour. And our aim is really to deliver to change their behaviour to deliver a positive environmental impact. As a charity, we specialize in eco-education, which just kind of leads to the program that we'll be running. And we're really looking at awareness raising across 5 themes. And those 5 themes we put down to energy, waste, nature, travel, and food. Our aim is to encourage behavior change and collective action at local levels, to share learnings and to affect change, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Within PECT, we run a variety of different schemes, and at the moment, a lot of the schemes we're running are actually focused on the sort of eco-education, so helping organizations to skill themselves in everything we've spoken about today with Tony. So we're delivering a range of programs across the UK that are focused on effectively this sort of education awareness around sort of net zero carbon, around sustainability. I also work on a scheme called Invest in the Environment, which is looking at environmental management. So as Tony was talking about, organizations thinking about how they actually look at themselves, how they manage themselves sustainably, and how they can start to build sort of the right processes, business practices to look at where they are, look at where they need to be, and put together those actions.
No, that all sounds really good. Thanks for that. I say I'm listening to it, but I know about PETS because, like I said, we've worked together on a number of projects, which is always useful. Yeah. And I've always found that you get more and more out of that. So we're talking mainly initially. We talked about that sort of that idea of net zero. So net zero being being that sort of the end game, isn't it? I mean, that's the sort of the goal. That's the direction. Yeah. And I guess that sort of concept needs to be talked about first to realize where you're going to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question always asked is, what is net zero? And I think it's a definition now that's everywhere, really. But yeah, exactly that. What we look to do with organizations on sort of eco awareness is just exactly that. Net zero is where we need to be. So where are we today? And what is it we need to do to sort of get there? And so what we want to do as part of the program is to help organizations, understand that the concept of net zero and what it's actually doing, but really to think about, well, actually, what is the pathway for me? What are the journeys? What are the options available to me? And utilizing Tony, he could be boots on the ground and working with organizations. What we want to do is sort of help with the upskill. So 3 barriers most organizations have to sustainability: time, cost, but then awareness. And that's what we want to do with this program, is to help organizations broach that awareness element. So what is net zero? What is it I need to do as an organization? Where am I currently? Where can I get to? And we want to try and sort of, as Tony mentioned, really just simplify it. There's lots of technical information. There's just lots of information out there. So we want to take all of that information and just sort of put it into real sort of bite-sized chunks that any business can sort of pick it up, work with us, get a good understanding, and go, okay, I see what I need to do, and actually take those steps forwards as they work towards their sort of net zero goal and agenda. Okay.
So that sort of what net zero is, and then that sort of path to it. And that's actually what your new program is, isn't it? Is now picking up and delivering, like you say, upskilling people for that journey. What does that look like? So what's the sort of the new? There's a new program starting, a net zero program that you're delivering on behalf of Business Lincolnshire. What's that doing? How's that look? And how can people find it? We'll go through all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So similarly, the program is on the Business Lincolnshire website, so you'll be able to access information there. Also speak to your Growth Hub advisors. They can signpost you to us, or again, you can just contact us directly by email. What we want to do is we've sort of looked at net zero and broken it down into 4 sort of core components. So there is the net zero elements. What's the definition of net zero? How to plan for it? What are the organization requirements, etc. So that sort of looks at the governance. So what is it as an organization we need to do to start to prepare for what net zero means for us as an organization? Then we also want to look at decarbonization. So great. So we have this governance, we have an idea of what we need to do, but how are we actually going to reduce our carbon footprint? So we take you through the process of how to calculate a carbon footprint, what a carbon footprint gives you in terms of information, and then start to think about what kind of technologies are available to you. So if you identify, for example, let's say you find that you need to do lighting, or what's the best kind of lighting technology? How would you think about that? How would you approach that subject? The third one then wants to look at energy management. So sort of, what are you doing in terms of your energy? How are you managing your energy? What are the behaviors around it? So that's a bit more specific to the organization or the type of business you are. We'll take you through the basics of what an on-site energy audit looks like, the type of work that Tony does, but also how you could do that type of stuff yourself as well. So, if you need to then continue that going forward, you have a bit of a knowledge and understanding in terms of what type of things you're looking for. And then the final piece we want to look at is, and this is very specific to net zero. So when we talk about the definition, the way I always describe it is net zero is a carbon management plan with an end goal. Part of that end goal, part of that carbon management starts to now include your supply chain. So in the past, organizations would just look at themselves and what their carbon footprint was. And the sort of what we call scope 3, with that sort of extended arm's length impacts we were having, wasn't really included. what's been introduced with net zero specifically is now for an organization to think about actually everything you do and how you have an impact across your value chain. The sort of the key term there, and that's essentially who are you working with, the products you're buying, and who you're selling to. Now, this is probably the most complex part of net zero, and one that even large organizations are still trying to grapple with. So we also are going to be delivering a sort of, one of the workshops we'll be doing will be on supply chain. So how to look at your procurement strategy, how to start communicating with suppliers, how to manage client requests on carbon performance. So we're seeing a lot of this, companies being asked by larger clients to please give me your carbon footprint or give me your carbon management plan. So how to broach that subject, how to pull together a carbon management plan so that you can then start to deliver that to your customers. The way we were doing the program is the net zero and decarbonization, kind of the bread and butter of the program. We're doing in-person live workshops later on in the year. Then what we're doing with the energy management supply chain is we're running virtual workshops to be a little bit more bespoke. So those are aimed at organizations who are, I guess, at that stage where energy management now a key focus for them, or supply chain are now a key focus for them. So we can take those two subjects out a little bit and make them a bit more specialized, a bit more adapted for the organizations who will be attending those workshops, just so that it's easier for them to take it back into their business. So that's the way we're doing it. So we're hoping to aim at all organizations, those who are literally right at the beginning of their net zero journey, but also those who are a bit further along. Okay.
So you've got some introductory webinars that are happening in February, and some half-day actual sort of face-to-face workshops in various different locations around the county.
Yeah, so the introductory ones are kind of just following a little bit today, just introduce the concept, the topics, a bit of hints and tips, some practical tools that you can take away, kind of almost whetting the appetite. This is what the courses will cover. And then we'll do the real nitty-gritty in-depth stuff in the workshop. So the live ones will start in April and July. They'll be across the Lincolnshire area. So we're doing one in Lincoln, Market Raisin, and in Grantham. So those are the three venues that we'll be running the live ones in. And then the virtual workshops will be later on. We've got one virtual workshop in May, in June, October, and November. So they'll be spread out across the year, and they'll be focusing on different topics. And what we have is we do have a survey that's available through the Business Lincolnshire website, where businesses will be able to express their interest in specific topics, or what they would like us to cover as part of these workshops, so we can aim to make them a bit more bespoke to meet business needs.
I was just quickly looking through. I think I've got a slide for that, haven't I, somewhere, that you gave me before. So let's just add that too. That was you just went down the webinars there, didn't you? Where you've got you've got the virtual ones, like you said, the intros to net zero, decarbonization, energy management, supply chains in February, and then your face-to-face workshops, and some of them virtual ones will happen later on in May, as you said. So a real mix stuff of early stuff. Get in, whet your appetite, find have enough knowledge to sort of ask the question in a way, isn't it? Sort of get to a point where you say, actually, I understand this, but I've now got a question. So maybe that's the bit where I go to a workshop and actually go face to face and sort of get a more detailed view, be able to put my business sort of questions to the presenters there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the introductory workshops were put in place for that exact reason. So come along if you have a sort of, we need to start looking at this. And if from those you think, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I do. There are some things I need to look at. Or that's a really interesting point. Then what we'll do with the live workshops is they will be workshops. They'll be interactive, helping you as an organization to think about, okay, well, where am I? Where do I need to be? And we want them to be really hands-on, so that by the time you leave the workshop, you hopefully have left with an action plan, what to do, the next steps for yourself across these two topics. The live workshops, they are an all-day workshop, but we've broken them into two sections. So as you can see here, in the morning, we'll do net zero. So we'll do the governance and the policy elements. And then the afternoon, we'll then do the decarbonization. So again, for the organization, if you need to approach all of the topic, you can come to both and be there for the day. If you're only really looking at policy to start with, you can come for the morning. If you're looking at decarbonization, you can come for the afternoon. So we have tried to make it as flexible for businesses to attend the bits that that's most important to them. But again, it's trying to offer a lot of information in the most flexible way we can to really just encourage businesses to come along and to really grapple with this net zero and actually start to develop the plans they need going forwards.
And I guess you could catch the morning in one and the afternoon somewhere else, couldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So we try to get them across the county as well.
Brilliant. Okay. So that all starts in February and then run through. Is there? We talked about how to get into that. How do you find more about the actual things on the Business Lincolnshire website, I guess?
Yes, the Business Lincolnshire website will have it, and then also you can contact us by email. We're more than happy to have the conversations. Similar to Tony, when you inquire about it, there is a bit of eligibility to just go through. But once we've done that, then we'll be able to let you know all of the dates, help you with any sign-ups, work out which sort of courses will be best for you, and we're happy to support you throughout the program to get you involved.
Good, as if by magic, there's the email address on screen. Things are working too well today. I don't know what's happening. It must be the snow. It must be the snow that's on the ground. I don't know if everywhere's got snow in every county at the moment. There seems to be a fair smattering where I am at the moment.
Yeah, we started, but it hasn't held. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's probably a good time actually if we just bring Tony back in and let's I'm still keeping an eye on the LinkedIn site, so I'm just going to bring Tony in. Hi, Tony. You're back in with us. I'm just having a quick look on our LinkedIn page. So if anyone is watching this and wants to leave a comment, by all means do. I can get that question to David or to Tony. But in the meantime, I think what I'd like to really ask either of you, it's a sort of almost like what's the top tips in terms of sustainability. I mean, what you just said to me there, both of you, you've got upskilling David from the programs. You've got that idea of getting more skills, and then Tony being able to provide some of that part of that, some of the on-site sort of real life report, which I think dovetail really well. You both must have come across some sort of early wins, quick wins, low-hanging fruit, top tips, whatever it is. What I don't care who goes first, but what would be the sort of these really things that could sort of easy to implement and start you down that journey?
Yeah. Well, I'll kick off, David. Give you a break as you've been speaking for a while, and you mentioned it actually, David, in the words you said at the beginning. Behaviour. I think changing behaviour costs nothing, and sometimes you go around a business and you see lights left on in rooms that are totally unoccupied, radiators throwing out heat in offices that again are totally unoccupied. And you can just get a feel for the culture of the organisation quite quickly. And I think some of the basics around, switching things off when they're not needed is, so obvious that I think a lot of businesses forget it. So I think behaviour, is important. And with that as well, just flagging up waste when they see it. Members of staff, members of the business. So I think behaviour change is something that is probably fundamental to a lot of businesses. I don't know if you agree with that, David. It's it just feels the starting point number one sometimes.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so whenever we start, just to effectively just reciprocate what Tony said, behaviors is the first thing. Not easy, but relatively easy to fix, low cost for the organization. So you can make almost instant savings without any investment. And just on that as well, when we look at behaviors, it's just to think about controls. So actually, what kind of controls do you have in place, and how do those behaviors and controls work together? Great place to start for any organization. It's just that really simple, fundamental. What are we doing? How are we doing it? And what is on site that helps us do what we need to do as well? Yeah,
I absolutely agree with the controls. And I think, actually at home, we've caught up quite quickly now with where businesses probably have been, some businesses, for many years. And that's this kind of self-learning heating control that you can get, your smart controls, thermostats that you can mount on the wall without mentioning names, that you can kind of set the occupancy period that you want to be warm, and the system kind of does the thinking for you, and you can control it electronically. And I think those apply to businesses. So if you're having that at home as a business owner, think about how that needs to be applied to your workspace, your business. How is your heating? The times I've been around a business and from a heating perspective, there's been a time switch on the wall It's usually got marker pen scribble on it saying "Do not touch" or something like this, and the business, somebody in the business is responsible for turning the heating on and off by pressing a button first thing in the morning, then when they go home at night. And you think, well, firstly, there's a timer there that can do that for you, and you query it and say, well, who's responsible for this? And does it work? Do people remember? Well, most of the time. Sometimes it's left on the weekend, but it works on the whole. And you're thinking, well, if you're looking to save money and save waste, use some of the equipment that you've got already. Check the timings, make sure it works. If it doesn't work, replace it. And maybe think about these smarter controls that are now increasingly available. So, and the same goes with, while on the subject of heating, radiators. Like I say, you walk in a room, the radiator's on. Some don't have thermostatic valves. Again, however you operate things at home, think about work. Sometimes they're open, so they never actually switch off. So some no cost even kind of solutions can be spotted straight away.
So timers, thermostats, basically smart controls if needs be, but some ways. And I suppose, that can be heating, same as lighting, can't it? The sort of dawn till dusk type lighting, and that's things that are off when you're not there, or motion detections or whatever, all sorts of things that so control. So behavior may be the first one, and then control maybe the second one, if you're going to put that as a headline. It's removing that scope for human error, which can happen to all of us, can't it, really? So if the cheapest way is to do it yourself manually, because it doesn't cost anything, but the danger of that is you're introducing human error and people forgetting to turn things on and off and whatnot. So that's, you've got to bear that in mind. But lighting, absolutely. And the same applies for that, with lighting controls, movement sensors, let's say daytime, nighttime sensors, etc. So there's ways in which you can help remove that human error there too. But lighting, particularly with the recent hike, I know prices are coming down now, but particularly with the recent hike in electricity price, I was seeing prices exceeding 80 pence a unit, for example, when typically you'd be paying, historically, say 10-15p a unit. So massive increases in electricity costs. Lighting is just one of the quick win ways in which that can be cut your consumption. And I was seeing paybacks. I had one business, as soon as I walked through the door, come up to me and say, "You don't need to look at my lighting, by the way. I've upgraded it to LED a year ago." I said, "Oh, well done. That's good. It saves me a survey job. How are you finding it?" "Well, I can tell you now, it paid for itself in 6 months." I said, "Sure, really?" He said, "Yeah, I monitored the energy use and it paid for itself in 6 months." So that gives you a flavour. I think now, realistically, with prices coming down, it's safe to say under 2 years. Particularly if you've got some of the old fluorescent tubes that historically have been looked at as quite efficient, the old fluorescent long tubes come in various thickness. Basically, the thicker it is, probably the most inefficient it is, as a general rule. But you can replace those with LED and easily get paybacks between 1 and 2 years. It's quite astounding, really. And where else can you get a return on investment of 50%? So it's something that is can certainly look at as a fairly quick win. I think lighting. Okay, David, what would be your sort of next one to add to that, or even embellish what we've already talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of fits in the same category, but one thing I always recommend for organizations. So I'm a very firm advocate of environmental management systems. Now, they don't necessarily need to be accredited, and you mentioned it, Tony. Yes, accreditations and badges are great to have, but really it's just fundamental basic management. So what's really important for organizations, and one thing I thoroughly recommend, particularly as we talk net zero, is just the type of data you have available to you, and actually what are you doing with that data. So for lots of organizations that we work with, we ask for their energy data, and like, oh yeah, and they have to go and find it. Whereas actually what we need to be doing as organizations is we need to have that data, we need to be gathering it regularly, and we need to be looking at it. So it comes in terms of behaviors and just in terms of general management, but just knowing what energy are you consuming, and the link to that, and this is what we'll cover as part of the energy management aspect to it. But and this is what what we do as consultants when we go and we look at data. We look at that data against business activity. So why is your energy doing what it's doing, and how does your business influence that? And that's really important for an organization if you're looking to make savings, is having that core understanding in terms of, well, what am I actually doing with my energy? Why is my energy so much? Why has it gone up this month compared to last month? What are the changes happening? And as you can start to build that sort of narrative and understanding, it helps you recognize where the opportunities are. And also when you put changes in, so we just talked about LED, and Tony made a good point. Actually, the client looked at the LED, looked at the energy, and could show that the savings were made. Again, that's why data is so important, because you can put these things in, but if you'd put the LED in and everyone just kept all the lights on anyway because they thought they were more efficient, you'll be able to see that in the data. If you're expecting a saving of X, but you get a saving of A because it's that far away from where you expected it to be, well, then clearly there's a behavioral issue there somewhere. So is the technology doing what we need to do? And you can only do that with data. So my I guess second step to that would be start to gather your data, looking at actual use, avoid cost, because we've already talked about how costs change. But just start to capture it, just start to look at it, and just start to get a feel for what your data is doing against what your business is doing is kind of the second step I put in for most businesses.
Yeah, okay. And some you can get that data every half hour. I don't know how many businesses appreciate that, but in some cases you can get half-hourly data free from your supplier. So you can use that, and if you got somebody in your business that's a bit of a whiz on a spreadsheet, there's some fantastic graphs that you can produce and have a quick look at those areas of wastage where you've got peaks and troughs, and try and challenge yourself as to why they're happening. So data is out there, and it can be provided on a format that allows you to migrate it to Excel. So it's useful stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to energy, mate. But what about sort of the environmental stuff? So non-energy type, quick wins, early wins. I know you talk. Is it the same thing? Are we talking about behaviour again? Are we talking about, I don't know. Where would you start, David? What would be your first thought?
So I think the easiest environmental thing to start with would always be waste. And we find waste, particularly working with organizations, it's a great entry point to open conversations with your staff, because it's tangible. You can see it. It's recognizable. Everybody knows waste and manages waste in some way or other. But from an environmental perspective, I'd say waste is a good place to start with for an organization. So really what we're looking at is, and again, coming back to behaviors, is are the right things being thrown in the right bin? What's staff awareness in terms of how waste needs to be disposed of? And that can range anything from a small organization with low waste streams to larger industrials which might have multiple waste streams. But we've done audits on site, and we've gone to look at a waste stream, and it's clearly labeled, you can see everything, but obviously someone decided just to put it in that bin because it was the first bin to them. So how are you looking at your bins? How are you looking at waste? What kind of checks do you have in place? But yeah, waste is always a good one to start with. It's a sort of it's, from an environmental perspective, it's the easiest one to look at, and a great way of engaging with staff for them to actually see, what are we actually generating as waste? And it then actually leads into further things in terms of what are you buying, how are you managing, how are you producing, what are your outputs like that. So there's lots of things that can feed into, but it's a good one to start with.
Okay, no, that's fine. Tony, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
No, I'd concur with that, really. I mean, a couple of examples, working with a business that was buying lots of raw product coming in, cardboard boxes and what have you, and yet they were also buying in not bubble wrap, but that kind of thing to package products to shift out. So this was before I arrived. I'd actually just bought a machine that shredded those cardboard boxes rather than going to waste, and actually reusing it, repurposing that cardboard box into packaging material to then send their raw product out. So they save money on having to buy that, and they save money on having to dispose of the waste as well. So it can be a win-win in two directions there. So yeah, I'd concur with that. And also, I think in our positions we can keep an eye out, and it happened very recently where I'd seen one business's waste that was in my mind from a year or so ago suddenly be a raw material for a business that I was speaking to. And I thought, well, I need to put these two organizations together, because if one person's waste can be another person's raw material, what better way of producing environmental impact? So yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I think, David, we came. Was it this? Is it part of that circular economy where that idea that you reduce, reuse, recycle, whatever. Yeah, that idea. And I think we've all probably come across that. And I remember working with a business in manufacturing, and they manufactured plastic parts for one of the things for the food industry. And I think they were color coded. There was 3 colors. There was red, blue, and I think yellow. And they meant things. I think one may have been vegetarian, one may have been gluten-free or something within the process. But all the waste used to go together until they found out that actually your red plastic waste was useful to a company. So to split the red off he could sell it rather than actually cost him to get rid of. He could sell it as a resource. He was then out trying to find where he could sell his yellow stuff and his blue stuff. But maybe not all your waste can be reused, but it's really trying to find that opportunity, isn't it? Of what am I getting rid of? What does someone else? I think in farming they're very good at this. In farms, there's very little leaves the farmyard because it all seems to go somewhere else within the operation.
Yeah, and fairly recently, I supported a farming related business where they were looking to install a lagoon on their land to store digestate from an anaerobic digester. Now we're getting a bit technical here, but essentially food waste that's collected by local authorities and businesses can be converted into heat and power through a kind of digestion process, and you're left with a product at the end called digestate. Now that can be used as an excellent fertilizer on the land, and this farmer, and it's becoming more increasingly common practice now across the farming sector. And with us being a agricultural area in Lincolnshire, it's an important point to note that they've seen the economic benefit of buying more of this digestate to replace traditional fertilizer that they've been buying in, which will have a lower carbon impact and provide the same output, the same end product for their crops. So yeah, that was another solution from an agricultural sector, and I found that really interesting because I've not dealt with some aspects of that agricultural side before, but and the calculations for carbon reduction are quite horrendous. So I managed to find a quicker solution around that. But yeah, there's certainly reusing things is more commonplace, particularly like say in the agricultural sector.
Okay, I think one thing I want to go back to, because one of you mentioned it was like return on investment, and it seems to be now with the increasing energy costs that actually return on investment on sustainable technologies seems to be much within a business's grasp now. I mean, David, you talked about a two-year ROI return on investment on lighting. David, I'm sure we've talked about things like air source heat pumps and that sort of solar panels, and again the return on investment coming right down in terms of duration.
Yeah, so solar panels particularly, is one we have seen a massive change. So if we talk prior to the crisis, so 2018, 2019, solar panel investments were probably paying back in around about sort of anywhere between 7 to 10 years, depending on the installation and how the solar energy was going to be used. What we see more recently with solar panels is paying back within about 4 or 5 years. So in terms of the energy costs themselves, it then almost becomes almost a no-brainer. If you can get the installation, get it in, you can pay back in 4 or 5 years. When the energy generated then is now an added bonus to the organization. So it's one that we did see, really significant sort of shift in, and we saw no end of organizations going, actually, yeah, great, let's do this. And so we had a huge uptake in solar PV over the last couple of years. And it's something we still recommend for organizations to look at and think, how does it fit in? Because it can pay back so quickly. And then again, it's such a valuable asset to the organization, as Tony said, to, I guess, protect yourself from volatility in energy markets. Having your own generated energy on site that is there and available for you to help sort of shield against those costs is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I found the same 5-year payback is not untypical, and so that's 20% in crude terms, 20% return on investment every year. So excellent, really, and particularly if you can align it with cooling, refrigeration, whatever, where when it's sunny and hot outside and your solar PV is generating the most, that's when your cooling, your fridges and whatever need to be working the hardest. So you can align that demand greatly when you've got solar PV. So
and the systems, sorry, I'm just to say the systems are really intelligent as well now. So there's the adaptability and flexibility to allow the systems to actually feed the most energy intensive processes. So when you generate that solar PV, it could actually look to, if your refrigeration is kicking off and absorbing consuming most of the energy, the solar PV can concentrate on actually feeding that first. So there's the systems themselves, what they can do in terms of how they can be applied to an organization is really good, and it can you can look at what your energy needs are and how that PV system is best needed to sort of feed your desire, your needs as well. Just one point, sorry, just in terms of the other thing as well, just another thing would you recommend for organizations when it comes to sort of thinking about return on investments and financing options? One sort of key tip we do take to organizations is to think about how you use your savings. So something to consider is, rather than just absorbing the savings into the company, but maybe actually trying to look at ring fencing some of that saving to then actually fund bigger objects. So through small changes that you can make, savings that you can generate through that, use that money to then invest in bigger and bigger things. So you can almost self-sustainably start to finance some of these options by just thinking about how you look at the savings, how you manage the savings, and how you apply them into other aspects of the business as well.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I think we are getting quite sort of deep here, but that's quite good, because we quickly go from being, do you know what, it could be to change a light bulb, or it could be actually to use a thermostat or use a timer, to the next things. Actually, these can be quite complex, where you've got mixture of different resources. You've got maybe on-site battery storage, solar stuff. You've got big energy sort of peaks that could be dealt with in-house. That therefore your sort of your supply rate is low, and obviously your bills. I think for me it's a fascinating subject, because it just seems to get better with time, with technology, and obviously with the drive to get our carbon footprint down, to get energy savings, to be sustainable, to be environmentally more friendly, aiming ultimately to, David, as we talked about, that sort of net zero of wherever it was, 2050. I didn't want to say it too loud. You always quietly when you're not quite sure about a date, aren't you? I'm just conscious of time. I'm conscious of your time and everyone. I'm looking on questions. I can't see any questions at the moment on the chat. I think we've covered quite a bit of what we should do. I think what you're both doing within Business Links is brilliant, and I think really complement well. That one can be that sort of kernel of information. It could then be actually to a physical report, but then it could be back to more upskilling through the workshops. I think all we can do is ask the businesses in Business Links to get involved, get in touch. David, Tony, I've put all your links out and your email addresses. If in doubt, just go onto the Business Lincolnshire site and have a look through there. Loads of events and stuff. So I'm just going to finish off by saying, Tony, David, thanks for joining us today. Really interested to talk to you as ever, because it's such a great topic, I think. And I always also sort of think on this of sustainability net zero. It is not just about saving the environment. Actually, these are very good business imperatives. They can be USP in terms of making you different to all the other businesses. You can sometimes in business can command a higher value for your product if it's shown to be sustainable and green. And all right, talk about the return on investments. These are proper investments. Where else, as Tony said, can you get 20% on your money? At the moment, nowhere. So there's lots and lots of things that benefit. I'm just going to quickly go into a little rundown. So thanks again to both of you for joining us and giving up your time. Just looking forward now to the next show, which will be joined by Mike Epton, Trevor Durant, and Chris Owen, discussing the up-and-coming Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland Manufacturing Conference, which is held on Friday, 8th of March, 2024 at the Lawn in Lincoln. And where we're also looking at all things manufacturing. So the next show will be on Tuesday, 20th of February, same time, same place. Thanks for joining us. See you on the 20th. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheers.